Every forum and every group is blowing up with the same words. Job saturation in the NHS. It's all pointless. We shouldn't even get GMC registration. Everything's already saturated. There are no jobs. There are no jobs. And yet, I don't really think many people understand what they're even saying. It's just kind of like a parrot that's repeating. They hear one thing and they just keep saying it. And this kind of tumbles down into everyone freaking out about pretty much nothing. So let's talk about job saturation in the NHS.
If this is the first time you're checking out our channel, welcome. Basically what we do is we run a website that's totally free known as roadtok.com, and it will explain the ins and outs about everything related to the United Kingdom and what it takes for you to work as a doctor in the NHS. So if you've not already, please stalk us on all of our social media. Find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe.
Hi everyone, my name is Ibreez and I currently work as a doctor in the NHS. Now, what does job saturation mean? What does it mean for you as the international doctor who's coming into the NHS? And why is everyone just fixating on this? Like, obviously there must be something there, you say to me. You're like, Ibreez, people wouldn't be talking about this and, tweeting about it and saying all these things if it didn't actually mean something somewhere. So let's first take a step back and understand what exactly people mean by saturation. For me, I always like to think of it as a sponge. You can only soak up so much water, and then the sponge can't do much else. It's pretty much useless because it's already saturated with water. So no use for the sponge. I think that's pretty much what everyone understands saturation as, although I suppose, it could mean so many different things depending on how you see it. In the context of the NHS and the availability of jobs for doctors, it doesn't make sense. And the reason why it doesn't make sense is, for any of y'all who have your ear to the ground, you know that currently doctors are listed on what they call a shortage occupancy list. What this means is, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. There's a shortage of doctors and they need them. So you're on a list. Because of this list, you pretty much don't have to worry about finding a job in terms of once you get a job, it's not going to be too expensive for you to get the visa, and the process will be facilitated in a faster manner than individuals who aren't on this list. The reason for that is, of course, they want you to come. This is their incentive and attraction for you to come there, because if you weren't on the shortage occupancy list, you would have to pay a little bit more for the visa, and there'd be other kind of intricacies and things involved. So, if there was saturation, in the sense that I'm understanding that means there are too many people in a workforce or in a sector, then why would doctors be listed on the shortage occupancy list? I feel like that doesn't make any sense, and there's no reason for the government not to update it if that actually happened. The weirdest thing is, people have been talking about job saturation since basically I got GMC registration. That's been like a couple of years ago, and I don't really understand why everyone is so obsessed with something that I feel like they don't actually understand, especially because since that time to now, doctors have actually been placed on the shortage occupancy list, and you can find numerous articles and pretty much data straight out of the NHS and from the UKVI and from GMC and from the BMA talking about at length the shortage of doctors and the need and the demand and why we may not even have enough doctors to become consultants in certain specialties in a certain amount of time. So if that's the case, well, why are people saying these things? Now, from my understanding, and of course everyone's understanding of this may be different, but from what people have messaged us and what they've kind of said to us, what I take from it is when people get GMC registration, they seem to think the minute they walk out of GMC, there's going to be a line of hospitals saying, please come to us. No, please come to us. And that bam, they've got a job in like 5 seconds flat. And I know this comes across as really blunt and perhaps a little harsh, but guys, let's be realistic. Yes, they need, doctors, but they're not desperate to that extent that they're just going to be waiting outside GMC holding up a sign saying, need doctor, please come. Come on. What job is there out in the world, a professional setting, where you don't actually have to try a little to get the job? The same way you've been preparing for everything up until this stage, be it your English proficiency, whatever kind of exam you took to get to this point, and all the paperwork and work that was necessary for you to get GMC registration, that amount of effort and time has to be put into getting a job and putting it into your job application. If you pretty much put out a job application that's very sparse in your details, that doesn't explain why you should be the one chosen, and really hasn't been filled out very well, or it's filled with a bunch of spelling mistakes or grammar errors, why would anyone want to hire you. If they look at that, there's no reason for them to say, actually, yeah, this is an individual we want to be working with us, even if you have all the experience and you tick all of the boxes that they're looking for in terms of qualifications, courses, degrees, etc., etc. So remember that. Yes, they need doctors. Yes, there is a shortage of doctors, but that doesn't mean the minute you get registration, you're going to be inundated with individuals saying, y'all got to come here, man. We need you right now. Now, you can easily argue the point back. Ibreez, all right, you're saying that fine, there's a shortage. Okay, I believe you. That means more doctors are coming into the NHS, but doesn't that mean there's going to be more competition? Doesn't that mean now it's suddenly going to be difficult? And that totally means it's saturated now. Okay, we have to look at this in different ways. First of all, let's throw aside the competition thought for a second and really look at the bigger picture. You know that as per the GMC Workforce Report, there are more IMGs who are getting GMC registration in the last few years than there have been British and EEA graduates combined. All right, now you're freaking out. You're like, what does that mean? But you have to also understand the shortage, dearth. Like, how bad are they in terms of how many doctors they need? December 2021, they came out with a report that said they were short more than 50,000 doctors. 50,000. Just think about that for a second. So if we're saying, fine, maybe there are 10 to 15,000 IMGs who are getting registration every year, and there are so many, we know then that means there are less of the British and EEA graduates who are getting GMC registration, just again, based on the Workforce Report. Let's say maybe that means 20,000 people got registration in a year, but they're still short 50,000. I don't really necessarily consider that to be a huge amount of competition when you think about, all right, of the British graduates who are going to get GMC registration, they're going to start off in the UKFP, the foundation program, because they have to. The EEA graduates may or may not also go into the foundation program. IMGs, yeah, they can apply for the foundation program. They can apply for a non-training job. They can directly apply for a training job. There are so many different pathways for international graduates that there's a possibility that, every IMG will have a different path, and they may not even cross paths because of that. There may be the IMG who decides to start in the foundation program with an FY2 standalone, with a non-training job, with a direct training either at core or higher specialty, or even via the medical training initiative or any other sponsored route. So when you think about it, those are pretty fair chances for the IMG to progress and move forward. Now, of course, you might be like, but that could mean that maybe a good chunk of individuals will start off as applying for non-training jobs. And if that means a lot of people are applying for non-training jobs, what are my chances? You can tell me, Ibreez, I have heard about people who've been applying for jobs for like 6 months, for like a year, and they're not getting any callbacks, they're not getting any interviews. And the people I know who have gotten interviews, or at least have been minorly shortlisted, they've, heard back from the hospitals that like 150 people applied for 2 posts. So that definitely means that the competition is there and there's saturation. Okay. If someone's applying for jobs for like 6 months to a year and they're not hearing back, let's just hear about that for a second. They're applying for jobs. That means there are jobs there that they are applying for. They're just not hearing back, getting shortlisted, getting an interview. So that doesn't mean there aren't jobs. Like, that's literally when people say job saturation, they're like, that means there are no jobs. No, there are jobs. They're applying for the jobs. They're not getting shortlisted for the jobs. Those are 2 different things. Now, and the other aspect of it, when you're like, okay, well, how come there are like 150 people applying for 1 post or 2 posts? You have to remember, a lot of people can apply for jobs. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are actually committed to what they need to be doing, or if they even meet the criteria to apply. I know a lot of people who start applying for jobs just to get a feel of it before they even have GMC registration, or they feel like, all right, fine, I have registration, but I don't have a license to practice. I just want to see what my odds are to get this job. Or even individuals who are either under or overqualified for particular posts. So I wouldn't necessarily read too much into that. What I would make sure you do, and guys, again, this may come across as a little harsh, is make sure when you are applying, you know exactly what you're doing and you take it seriously. Now, as a lot of y'all know, we do run a personalized service where we will look at your job application and help you understand what you need to do and what you don't need to do and the kind of mistakes you need to avoid. The thing is, a lot of those job applications, I'm seeing people with a good amount of experience, or individuals who, even if they just have internship experience, have the opportunity to expound upon a lot of their virtues or a lot of the things that they're doing extracurricularly to really make themselves unique in the application. But y'all need to take it seriously. So many of y'all seem to give up when it gets to the job application point where you're just kind of like, I'm just going to phone it in. I'm just going to say, y'all need to hire me because, I mean, I'm obviously awesome. I got this far. I've got registration. Give me a job. And I'm not messing around. Like, I'm not saying all of y'all are like that. There are individuals out there who've sat down and thought about it and they go forth and they get what they need to get. But you have to remember the amount of work, like I said before, that you've put in up until this point. You still need to put that amount in when you're doing your job application. There isn't any sort of like, you know, oh, fine, you got a golden ticket, let's go, here's your job. So remember, you have to take all of this seriously. And I'm not trying to put any of you all down. I know you might think, well, Ibreez, that's really mean of you to say. Like, I've been trying really, really hard, and I've had my, you know, profile reviewed a billion times by all these people, and everyone says it's good, but, you know, I'm still not hearing back from anyone. I get it. But you also then need to analyze, are you applying for the right types of jobs? Are you actually looking to see, is there anything else in particular that you could be talking about better? Are there any kind of things that you can do to make your application better, because those are specific to what they're asking for? And really, realistically, maybe you're overqualified for whatever you're applying for, and that's why they're not hiring you. Do you think you might actually be better qualified for another post or another, you know, subspecialty or something else? There are so many things that you can be looking out for. I mean, there's some individuals where I've seen that their entire job history experience, you know, extra degrees have been like obs-gynae, and then they try and apply for an FY2 post in medicine, and they're, you know, gobsmacked as to why nobody's calling them back. It's not that obviously your OBGYN experience wouldn't be useful in a medicine post. Yeah, sure, maybe it might be. But let's think about it. Like, if they're looking at somebody who's got a little bit more experience in medicine, or who is selling the fact that they want to pursue medicine in the future, they will look at that individual in the application process, and it's as simple as that. The last thing to remember, guys, is everything that's been happening the last few years, pandemic-wise, COVID-wise, people working from home-wise, it may take a little bit of time for you to hear back. I mean, even when we first started applying for jobs, and then we finally got a job in the NHS, and we started working in that job in the NHS, we heard from some trusts who were like, oh, hey, do you want to come for an interview? And you got to understand, it's a lot of administrative work. Maybe they only have a couple of individuals. Maybe somebody, you know, was unwell, became sick, and they couldn't process things as quickly as they needed to process things. It happens. So don't get disheartened if you submitted an application on Friday and you haven't heard back by Monday. It's going to take them a little bit of time. Yes, definitely there are some trusts who'll get back to you sooner than other trusts, but that doesn't necessarily mean everyone will. So don't necessarily think that just because it's been 3 months or 4 months and you haven't heard anything, that's the end of the world. Again, I want to reiterate the importance of you understanding your application and what types of posts are ideal for you. You don't necessarily need to fixate on the exact job description and person specifications, and you don't need to think that you have to meet every single thing in that criteria or talk about every single thing in your application. I have a video talking about the 7 most common mistakes that people make in their job application. I would highly recommend you go through that. But remember, whatever other people are saying out there, let them say it. You need to concentrate on what's, you know, your ideal, what your goal is, and what you're setting yourself out to achieve. There is nothing in life that's guaranteed. No one will ever hand you anything on a silver platter, and there's no reason for you to expect the same when you start working in the NHS or you get to this point. When people message us that, oh, listen, I've heard that there's saturation and I really want to take PLAB, but is it worth it? I can't tell you if it's worth it. The only person who can say whether or not it's worth it is you, and you need to think about that whenever you start any part in this journey. You need to have your pros and cons list. You have to think to yourself, do you know what? I don't care how many hurdles there are. This is what I want to achieve, and I am going to set out to achieve it. And whatever comes your way, go for it. Guys, when we first, got our GMC registration, there used to be a cap on visas. Okay? What that meant was they wouldn't hire certain individuals unless they were either specifically needed for a shortage occupation, and that time the only shortage occupancy posts were those in emergency medicine and old age psychiatry. And outside of that, if you didn't meet a certain salary threshold, you didn't get a visa. And think about it now. All of that's gone. You are literally not having to stress out about whether or not you'll get a visa or whether or not you'll find that job. The jobs are there. The visas are available. You just have to put in the time and effort. And if there's the last thing that I can really get across to you all in this message today is, please do not take this lightly. This is just as important as any exam. This is just as important as any other form of your registration or practice. It serves as the foundation of you moving forward. So make sure whenever you're applying correctly. apply for a lot of jobs, and don't give up. That's the most important thing. So thank you for watching this video with me today. I really hope it's helped you understand what saturation is or isn't and what you need to do in order to succeed. And as always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, subscribe to our newsletter, and of course, be awesome, and we'll see you around next time. Bye.